And you have this feeling of happiness in your life. Embrace it. When you have a thing of joy, embrace it. Because as you know, there's plenty of times in life you're going to feel sad, crying, stressed out is another term right now. Stressed out. And then as you get into awareness itself, you get that experience, you realize your realization, self-realization, because it's self-realization now, within you. You get it. And when you get it, you cut through. You're cutting through. You're cutting through all these obvious fabrications of society and culture that you live in, and what's the biases and what's the prejudices that have been built up. And you've got them in that background and whatnot. But as you get into, reality versus myth, when you get into 21st century, you're cutting through. You cut through all that stuff. You see right through it. You let it go. You don't believe it. You don't adhere to it. You can say you open up. You're not attached to it anymore. And when you do that, a lot of times you're going to feel some contentment. You're going to feel some joy. You're going to feel freedom within you. Like that song, I'm free. Well, yeah, because you're 21st century. You get it. You already cut through all those toga and sandals, dark age stuff that we've been talking about. Well, sure, you can just see from the history. Just look at the history. Everything's been a schism happening. It doesn't stay, the same. The forces that try, the people who try and keep it the same, are like repression. They're like Republicans. They're like racists. The repression of homosexual, repression of women, repression, of in America, repression of, African American, Latino American, not, trying to assert white people as a constant, just to protect power, money, privilege. Well, in the 21st century, folks, you're cutting through all this stuff. You're cutting through it. When you look at the history, you can go to the religious side of the history and say, well, there's Hindu and Hinduism, right? And Shakyamuni was a Hindu. But there's a schism. And Shakyamuni schism breaks away and becomes Buddhism. And in Judaism, remember, Jesus, the guy, whether you think the story is true or not, just there's the story. There's the Jesus guy, and he's a Jew, but he schisms away. That becomes this Christianity. But again, look at the history. Even Christianity becomes another schism. Martin Luther comes in and schisms away to become Protestant. Even though it seems, if you look at the word, you say, isn't that Protestant? Basically, they were protesting against the structure of the Catholic Church. They schismed away. Well, folks, isn't it time for another 21st century schism? I think we're ready. We're way ready to break off again with our 21st century awareness and intelligence. But this time, there isn't any solitary messiahs anymore. We're different. And so far, that's because of our internet, our global access to each other. And you find out, hey, you got it too. You understand it too. 21st century. The great equality. The great reality. Not myth. See? One of the big things here that 21st century religions are doing. And Society of Sacred Flowers is that 21st century religion that's saying not myth. They don't need any myth. Those days are over. Gone. Those fabrications. And in a lot of ways, letting go because those fabrications have justified repression, racism, repression of homosexuals, repression of women, repression of African Americans, repression of Latino Americans, repression of the other, based on religion and myth, made up stories. Well, in the 21st century, you take a big sigh of relief. You've cut through all that. You don't adhere to it. You don't believe it. You know. It isn't just belief. You know. You're not doing it that way anymore. It just vaporized. It's gone. You've cut through. Well, you've made a schism. And you're doing it in your life. And the distillation down of the essence is what happens each time a schism happens. It clarifies. It throws out the old crap. It throws out the things that have been a hindrance, justification for repression, restrictions. We embrace global attention, global understanding, global awareness that is a great equanimity. And as we say as a metaphor, it's always like you're coming out of the dark, of ignorance, of hiding, of fumbling around in like a darkness. Because all those myths are just like a big woolly blanket of deception and fraud, holding you down, holding you back. And instead, you've thrown it out all away. It just naturally, you've just outgrown it. You've just thrown it away. You cut through. And there you are, looking around at things with reality, not myth. And it becomes very clear, becomes very open. You do, within you. And then you live it. That's the key there. Not only do you get it, you live it. You just don't, put up with it. You don't keep on with the old Dark Age crap. You don't give them any attention. You don't give in to any of their, like you're supposed to agree with their mythological justifications. You're not doing that anymore. Your 21st century. Your clarity. Your reality. You are the light.